This meeting to order. At this point, I will take a motion to review and approve the agenda.
So moved. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next up, I need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll make a motion we go, what's the word? Recess, thank you. Make a motion that we recess into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel and legal matters.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye. That needs to
We need
be
to
roll
roll
call.
call. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Keller? Yes. Sal? Yes. Lieutenant? Yes. Mr. Addison?
Yes.
Quinn?
Yes.
Dr. Stricker?
Yes.
We'll also be discussing my inability to come up with a nice basic word called recess. Which is right here on the agenda, which you provided.
Now back in open session. At this time, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, at this time, we have our first opportunity for public comments. School board welcomes questions, ideas, and comments from persons in attendance. Members of the audience may comment during the public comment portion of the meeting when recognized by the board president. We ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes in order to complete the agenda within a reasonable time. We also ask that comments begin by providing your name, address, and school district in which you reside. Mr. Beck.
Dave Buck, 124 South Elm, and we're in the Webster Grove School District. How many of you have seen the movie, the great movie called Remember the Titans? Denzel Washington's the coach. It's a true story about a high school in Virginia that has black and white players, racial divide, major racial divide, not only among the team, but the town. And he heals the team, brings them together, brings the town together, and they win the state championship. I thought about that movie at the last meeting when you recognized the Webster Groves varsity basketball team for winning the state championship, actually for 2 years in a row. Equity is really important to this district, as you all know more better than I do. In fact, I know there's a 12-page document that has 93 bullet points of actions to take. Well, I want to propose Action 94, which is for this board and the district to go to school with the coach and the team at the Webster Groves varsity basketball team. They are probably the most integrated unit in the whole district, in my opinion, of black and white players coming together, whatever their differences may be, but coming together as a team, practicing together, playing together, losing together, winning the state championship together. And you saw them as a team last meeting. I think that maybe the coaches, Coach Blossom, and I would go to football and Coach Ice, I'd go to track and field and Coach Petter, and talk to them about what they're doing to bridge the racial gap, to bring equity to their team and equity to their sport. Because if we aren't talking to them, I think they may be doing the very best job in our district, and we don't know it. Okay? That's my point. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make a public comment at this time? All right, board members, you all have an updated correspondence log in your board packet for new members. When we receive letters or emails, those are kept in a correspondence log, and that's made available to the public. It's updated at every meeting, so that is there for your review. This time I will entertain celebrations from board members. Start with you, Dr. Stricker.
Went to the band concert at Hickson, and they had a full house there and rousing success.
Great.
Enjoyed that.
Okay. David?
So use celebration in the broadest sense. I attended, along with a number of other people, the celebration of life for Danielle Egling, who been a long-time teacher at Clark. She taught kindergarten teacher, had all of my children, I believe. I think she had all of yours as one of yours, but a number of others. And just wanted to recognise this was somebody who'd been very active in the district. Unfortunately, passed away, and just sort of a note almost of thanks from certainly from me, and I think from the board for everything that in the time she served the district.
Thanks, David. Steve?
I'll second what David said about Ms. Egling. Although my daughter didn't have her, she was a fixture at Clark for many, many years. So I did get a chance to attend the computer school trivia night, and kudos to those who put that together. It was very well run, and it was really enjoyable evening. Had a good time.
Speaking of enjoyable evenings, last Friday, Edgar Road School's PTO had a Zumba dance party, and afterwards we went out for appetizers at Weber's, and what I really loved was that half of the table were parents that we didn't know because they were parents of incoming kindergartners.
Wow.
So we're already building community.
Great.
I'm gonna pass.
Okay.
Well, our spring play was 2 weeks ago, Arsenic and Old Lace. It went great. Our volleyball team went 3 for 3 last week. Our tennis team winning today against Pattonville. We are now 9-2. Our girls soccer beat Kirkwood last week. So a bunch of successful wins as far as sports goes and the play.
Thanks, Joe. And I'll just add that my seniors attended prom. Both of my seniors attended prom last Saturday. And by all, my coach told me for saying this in public, but my son, who had never been to a high school event in his life, his twin sister reported, Owen danced all night long, and when it was over, he said, why didn't I go to any high school dances? Because you never do things the easy way. But I heard from many people that it was just one of the best events ever. And I think it's so cool that Webster, it's a senior prom. That's kind of unusual. Most districts, it's juniors and seniors, but in Webster, it's a senior prom, and I think that makes it more special. So thank you to all of the high school staff and parents who supported in putting that together.
Was that a mom I told you so moment? Did you put one on your scorecard?
One of many. Okay, celebrations from administrators.
Kathy, do you have?
Not this time.
Just some that I wanted to highlight before I turn it over to Bruce. First of all, we've arranged for, and we'll be communicating soon, on May 4th, the staff is going to have the opportunity to honor and celebrate John Clark at Llewellyn's, and I believe that event will run until 6. John was originally not interested in something beyond that, but we've talked him into doing a community-based event where anybody could come, and that's going to be at Llewellyn's following the staff event. We're probably going to give a 30-minute gap between the staff and the community event, and then the community event will be for like 2 hours. So that's going to be on May 4th. I'll send the board a calendar invite if you want to stop by. The other thing I just wanted to celebrate, well, 2 things. One, 98 high school students inducted in the National Honor Society. That's a pretty big number. It's really good. It's quite an honor to be a part of that society. Last thing, and I shared this with the board, but just want to share it publicly. Last week I had the opportunity at the Walter Ambrose Family Center to meet and walk the building with Dawn Patillo, who is Walter Ambrose's granddaughter, who had never been to the center, and to see the emotion and just the gratitude she had for, one, just all the good work going on there, but to see her grandfather on the wall and seeing him being honored in such a big way, it was really, really a really neat experience. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bruce for 2 special celebrations.
Thank you. This evening, we are pleased to present the board with 2 donations that are being made to the school district. The first one is from the Lions Club. The Webster Groves area, the extended Webster Groves area, I should say, is fortunate to have an
an active and involved Lions Club, tirelessly working to improve the community. Club and member activities include community service events and fundraising designed to support issues and causes which make Webster a more attractive place to work, to live, to play, to learn, and to do business. As such, the club in the past has contributed to the Webster Grove School District, the police department, and the fire department, among many others. With the current national, state, and local focus on school security and student safety, Webster Grove School District is once again on the Lions Club list of beneficiaries. Specifically, tonight we are joined by a large contingent of honored and distinguished members of the Lions Club to present the board with a generous $8,000 contribution toward improving building security in our schools, specifically the installation of an electronic entry system at the high school and the provision of other physical security improvements to make our schools and our students safer. Would representatives like to join me?
Yes, absolutely. Board president's coming up. Oh yeah, please. Stacey.
If I could entertain you guys for a quick second. We really would like to take the opportunity to thank the board and all of your support for our carnival by allowing us to continue to have the carnival on your grounds. You guys are allowing us to have alcohol on the premises this year for our patrons, and I think that is awesome that you guys are willing to do that for us. And this is a wonderful opportunity for us to show our gratitude, and that we are very thankful for your willingness to work with us this year and next year as well. Thank you. Thank you.
He's right over here.
As I say, it's too late. Can't take that one and cash it out.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
That'll be a huge ATM, and put that one in.
Immediately hand this off to someone else. You be in charge.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank you very
all.
much.
Thanks for all you do for the community. You're a great organization, and we really appreciate it.
The other donation we have is an annual donation, actually, from the district's food service program manager, Chartwell's, who administers the district's breakfast and lunch program. As a voluntary part of its service and commitment, Chartwell's has made a generous $5,000 annual contribution to the district in support of two worthy causes. First, $1,000 of this grant or this contribution goes to the Webster Groves Education Foundation to support its Grants to Teachers program. And then the remaining $4,000 balance funds the award of $1,000 college scholarship investments in 4 deserving high school students. This evening we have the program manager here in Webster Groves, Nancy Gallant, who has joined us to formally present this year's $5,000 contribution to the board.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for having such an opportunity.
Would you like to say something?
Thank you so much.
Thank you to Chartwell's.
Just wanted to also, one other celebration that we wanted to add, and I know the community is all behind this as well as the school district, but Mr. Ellerman, who's been our CFO, COO for 2 years, has agreed to stay on for a third. So we're extraordinarily blessed and thankful that he thinks as much of us as we think of him. So.
Yes, we are thrilled to have you for another year. Okay. Let's look into celebrations. All right, board calendar is in your packet. I want to draw your attention to the May 2nd MSBA Spring Regional Meeting, which will be here at Webster Groves. There will be presentations by both the Rittner School District and by Webster. Dr. Simpson and folks at Hudson will be talking about
Democratic learning.
democratic learning. And so that will be a dinner meeting. The next Let's Talk community gathering is May 6th at Bread Company. I will be out of town that day. You guys want to look at your calendars real quick and we'll see who is available to attend on the 6th. Keita and Christine, if you aren't aware, we have been trying to engage with community members on a more informal basis as opposed to, I mean, obviously, meetings aren't a great opportunity to interact because we just listen to public comments. We don't really have a conversation with people. And so we started trying to do this on a monthly basis where we would gather 3, we don't want to have 4 board members there because then it would be a quorum and it would be a meeting which would have to be posted in compliance with the Sunshine Law. But 3 board members or fewer just set up at a location around town and are just available for a couple of hours during the day on a Sunday if anybody wants to stop by and talk to us. So that's the gist of that. So I need 3 or fewer people who might be able to attend. Arnold?
I'd probably be a little late, but I can be there.
Okay.
I think I could be there.
Okay. Arnold and Joe.
And I think Keita too.
Okay, great,
Yep.
perfect. So, and that is going to be at 12:30 at St. Louis Bread Company on May 6th.
I may be a wee bit late as well.
Okay,
I'll be just getting off work though.
yeah, that's fine. I want to point out that are we going to be at the Service Center on the May 14th?
Yes.
We are, okay.
So at
Is there a
the
reason?
May 14th, the reason we're going to be at this service center, historically, at this meeting in May, we had a science fair, presentation of science fairs before the meeting. And it's often hard for board members to come to the meeting before the meeting. And that had been at the high school. And we thought, what a way to maybe honor these students with maybe not as thorough of a presentation of all of them, but to set up their presentations around the service center and then give them special recognition during the celebration. So not only a few board members get to see their science fair projects, but the community will who comes as well. So.
Anything else that takes us through the next meeting? Anything else that you all see that needs to be added to the calendar? All right, if not, our guests from Chartwells and the Lions, you are welcome to stay, but if you have other things you need to do this evening, you will not hurt our feelings if you would like to excuse yourselves and get on with the rest of your night. Thank you again so much for your donations. We appreciate it. Okay, board involvement at graduation.
Yeah, this is just kind of an FYI. Graduation is just around the corner, Friday, May 18th. And it starts at 6:30 p.m. That's the hard start time. I would encourage you to get there early if you can. We always will, if you request parking spaces, support, especially if you're rolling in late. Just let me know that you want parking.
That always works for me.
Was that directed at Amy rolling in late?
Please, and thank
Anybody
you.
else know that they want parking
I would love
besides
parking.
Same.
Steve, Joe, Keita?
Anybody
David.
not want parking?
Right.
And for those of you who haven't, for those of you who haven't taken advantage of it, it's, if you go up the drive past the football field, they usually put us right in those first few spots,
Yeah.
just past the concession stand.
Okay.
But they usually block off unless, but you just, oh, board member, and they're like, right here, and they move a cone.
That would work.
Put you in
Flash my
there.
little.
There you go. Now that you have that, right?
I would be happy to discuss a ride share, not to take up so many spots if anybody's willing.
Okay.
But
So I've got Steve, Joe,
I'd like parking.
okay. Everybody but Arnold and Christine at this point, is that correct? Okay. And then, so that night too, just for, some of the rooks, it can get pretty bright. Last year it didn't because we were trying to get it done because rain was coming. But so just be mindful of that, just the heat and the sun that could be coming. And I'll turn over to board members. So at the next meeting, at the May 14th meeting, we will, we'll subdivide the number of graduates into groups, seven groups. And then you'll have the opportunity to say what group you want to be a part of. But then if you know a graduate and want to jump into another group to give that person their diploma, you can. So that night, you give them their diploma. Anything else you all want to say to?
If there is a move of graduation because of rain, by when would we know that?
Probably up to 2 or 3 o'clock of that day. So what we'll do last year is we just kind of monitor that and talk with different weather stations. We're blessed to have a few local weather folks. We go to inside to Robert's Gym for that. It gets a little tricky because do they only get 2 tickets? Do kids?
Yeah, I think they get a few more than that.
I think it's 4.
They get 2
Yeah.
for
4
the gym,
maybe.
but 2 for the school.
Maybe the auditorium.
Yeah.
It's not an ideal
The
scenario.
twins each get their own set. We already checked.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So far in 8 years, it's only been in there one time since I've been on there, so.
Yeah. Any other
Jinx
words
it.
of wisdom, board members for?
They will provide you with water.
Yes.
And the kids will want to slide by you really quick, but slow them up. And
Or we can,
we'll talk about
Yeah.
the logistics of that, but the kids forget that there's pictures to be taken, so.
Okay, board involvement at staff recognition reception, Dr. Wiley.
Hi, so everyone in the document.
Sandra, you mind stepping up and using the mic?
Sorry.
It's okay.
In your board documents, you should have received a poster that kind of maps out the retirees and then the different service years of recognition that we have. So for that night, we'll of course be in the comments. We will have for you the cards as we did last year, the same thing where depending upon where their years of service, but they'll be recognized, they will receive a card and they can later then go on the website and then log on in order to receive their gift, whatever they determine. So as board members, we would ask you to come. We're starting, I think it's at
3:45.
3:45. We're starting at 3:45. We'll start promptly. We'll walk the red carpet again. Well, kind of orange, but it's red carpet. So again, it's Oscar's theme. Again, wanting to honor those folks that'll be there. We will have food and beverages for you. You are welcome to come and do that. We do have the list that Kathy normally provides you guys with the phonetic pronunciation of everything, but I didn't want to give you that and then turn around and give it again because we don't have the retirement blurbs that go with it. So you do have the list of names. If you know that based on the list you want to specifically talk about anyone in particular, you can either email Kathy or me, and so that we can make sure that we provide you with that. But prior to the 16th, Kathy is still waiting to get the information from the principals. Once we get that, we'll forward you a finalized list so you can kind of see everything. But the names and everything that you have, it'll be the same thing minus the blurb for the retirees. Any questions? We might try to do a little bit different last year. I know that there were a number of people that didn't show, and so as board members, you guys are up there kind of calling names and no one came. So we're going to try to work out a different system so that once the person that's going to be honored is there, we have a system where we know who they are, and then so that you guys aren't calling 20 names before you get to the next person. Because at some point, I think David was like, okay, who's here? Who's here? Just come on up at some point. So we'll try to make it a little bit more, succinct and respectful of everybody in their time.
All right, questions about that? All right, and I assume you want to know if anyone's not going to be able to be there.
Yes,
Before
that is
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Kathy V.
Good evening. We are going to run our communication survey again. As you remember, last year around this time, we developed a survey for the community to find out how they wanted to hear from us and how we could best get information from them. And it's pretty much the same. We took the old survey to the key communicators and had them take a look at it. So there are some changes. We did tweak it. And in your board docs, that which is underlined reflects the changes. And they're fairly minor. We did not add any questions. I think we might have taken one out, but it's pretty much the same. We had about a little more than 700 people answer last time. We thought that was pretty good, and we'll hope we get more.
How is this distributed, Kathy?
We advertised it in the Times. We sent it the link. It was online. We sent the link out to all the parents. We put the link on our homepage, Facebook. We left it up for 2 weeks in June, I believe, and I think maybe we'll put it up in May this time since we're ready.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the plan.
Earl.
Suggestion and question on number 3. Is it possible to add like other please list like it is on question 2?
Yeah. That should be there. We will do that.
And then I had a question about, and I think I know the answer, but I'm just trying to be sure about it. On number 4, we have strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and then don't know. Are we trying to get more in the first 4 and less in the latter category, rather than put like unsure in the middle?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, that's how we've been doing it. That's how all of our surveys in the past have run, so we just kept it that way.
And I didn't know if we wanted to add like a don't know on number 7 also, like it kind of is on number 8.
Okay,
Just
maybe.
thought.
Yeah. So you think, Dr. Strick, do you think unsure fits better within agree and disagree?
You could put a don't know. So you could put sort of something that is neutral, as in no opinion.
Right.
Because I think there is a difference between having no opinion and just not being sure what the question means.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to put something
It's
neutral,
almost like NA.
yeah, you'd put or you'd put no opinion in the middle, or
And I know sometimes people will always circle the middle, and maybe that was the reason that was on the end, and you wanted to get people to really kind of commit. I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah.
I guess there has to be a place for people that have never tried to express their concerns and opinions. That's what I thought the don't know was for.
So just some thoughts.
What were we adding? Were we adding something?
Well, I guess my question for you all would be, do you, who have worked with the key communicators, I don't want to change anything to undermine the work that they've done. If you think that what's being proposed is consistent with their intentions, then
I think it is.
I
I think anything we could
conjunction
do,
with
they
them
would
on-
not be upset if we clarified
Right.
this language, for sure.
okay, so then do you have what you need from Arnold or others in terms of the changes that you want to make?
I think so. I think we'll talk about it, and we'll send something out to you all about the proposed changes.
We'll send you a clean copy.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Any other suggestions, though? Those are some good ones.
Okay, thanks Kathy. Thank you. Dr. Simpson, tennis courts,
Tennis courts and
carnival.
carnival. So what I placed a document from that was sent to me from Steve Wiley to you all, which was a proposed language change to the current agreement. Just kind of wanted to speak to it a little bit and then give you guys an opportunity to weigh in as you see fit. So certainly the history of the carnival, starting with the carnival, has largely been a function of the city and the Lions and the relationship there. We have traditionally allowed our parking lot to be used for parking, the Mossfield lot, which we have certainly benefited from. Our band program has benefited from. And then in the interest of continuing to partner with the city and the Lions, last year we made the determination to, as you know, to support having the carnival on the Mossfield lot, coming to an agreement with that. Really trying to empathize with the city's desire to avoid damage to the athletic field, which, depending on the weather, can be, it's always bad. It always takes away programming from kids, but it could be really bad if it rains. Earlier this year, district administrators were presented with a proposed 10-year agreement that combined both the carnival as well as the parking lot. We're presented with I'm just going to stick to my notes. Agreement for the use of the Mossfield parking lot for the carnival is part of a larger agreement, which included renovations to the Memorial Park tennis courts. From the onset of our discussions with folks, our position has always been to keep both discussion of the carnival and the tennis courts separate from one another. At the January board meeting, and for the second time in 2 consecutive years, the board agreed to the 1-year agreement for the use of the Mossfield parking lot for the 4th of July Carnival festivals this 2018. On February 20th, as the Lions stated, we agreed to amend the agreement to allow for alcohol to be brought onto the grounds but not to be sold onto the grounds. In support of our partnership with all parties, including the Lions, who continue to contribute to our students, including allowing our band program to make money through that carnival, The district does not charge anybody for use of our district facilities for that entire 10 days, just for some context, some awareness. The question has been posed in different places, why one-year agreement? Why are we advocating for a particular one-year agreement? First of all, it's really looking at how we retain flexibility with use of our facilities and our spaces. That's a primary reason. Also, having a one-year agreement allows us to annually evaluate the agreement and possibly consider if we wanted to terminate the agreement if we felt our operations or our facilities, parking lot was somehow harmed, or maybe even a moss field. This is also consistent, so we have district use of premises that goes through Adrian's office where people use our facilities. And our general practice is to allow groups to rent out facilities. One of those groups is a particular group that meets at Steer Computer School weekly, and they've done so for about 3.5 years. Every year they have to come in and they have to submit that they want to use their facility again. Again, it provides that opportunity to, how is this all working? How is it working for our facilities? How is it working for our faculty, our staff that supports that? I certainly understand the desire of the city to have the carnival off the ball field, and believe that a strong city-school district relationship is critically important. We have to look out as a school system for the best interests of our kids, best interests of the organization, much like the city has the charge to look out for the best interests of the city. I believe that by annually revisiting the agreement worked well last year, doing it again this year. I believe that by annually revisiting the agreement, that we're demonstrating both that willingness to partner as well as that willingness or that sense to be responsibility for the organization, for the Webster Grove School District. So that's kind of my thoughts on that one-year agreement. In terms of the tennis courts, since the fall of 2016, Bruce and I have been parties to some different conversations, some face-to-face, some other correspondence about the tennis courts with the city, with Narix Hall, and with Webster University. The interest in developing new courts, as well as a grant that will also support curb costs to the city for the use of the development of these courts. We have regularly stated that we're interested in partnering on the project for the courts, and the 2016, although an agreement never came to the board for the tennis court partnership, and it's a substantial sum of money, we did in our budget earmark money for this year's budget, 2017-18, for those courts if that kind of partnership ever came to fruition. Certainly our tennis program, Joe Castleman's a part of that, and our PE programs benefit from the use of those courts, and specifically 8 courts more than 4. And I'm hopeful that once all the parties are able to come back to the table to talk about the tennis courts, that we're able to come to some resolution and move forward on that. So our preferred recommendation to the board is to continue with the one-year agreement, to revisit it annually for the use of the parking lot for the carnival. The city has requested the district consider a 10-year agreement. Again, there was one that was sent a while ago. We went with the 1-year. Proposed change in language was sent. You've got a copy of that a few weeks ago by Steve. And so I just wanted to seek your thoughts regarding this. It's important to me that we continue. I have a lot of admiration for the people in the city. I have a lot of admiration for the Lions Club. So we want to continue to have a partnership. We want to continue to have a positive relationship. That gets a lot of social media traction as well. People come and speak at our board meetings. So I think that's important as we proceed, regardless of the direction we have. So, or head, rather. Any
questions or comments?
So first, just on the tennis courts, you said a substantial amount of money. Can somebody tell me how much money we've got in the budget for that?
We have $150,000.
And you talked about getting money from, we talked about the fact this would be us and Narix and Webster University. Do you know if they have made a financial commitment to upgrade the tennis courts as well? And if so, do you know if it's the same amount?
It's our understanding that the parties are contributing $75,000 per team, and the district has a boys team, a girls team, so 150. Webster's also has a boys and a girls team, and so men and women's team, so they're ponying up 150 as well. Narings being just a girls team is 75.
I don't know if an agreement has been, a written agreement has been reached with any of them.
Okay, no, but just in terms, but just so that we
A
understand.
pledge. That's what.
In terms of what's being suggested, though, so the idea is that that we'd contribute 150,000, that Webster University would contribute 150,000, and that understanding that no one's actually done anything.
Correct.
And I was going to say, I believe it's up to 150,000 or a particular percentage, not to exceed. That's what the
Yeah, it's a
last
not to
agreement I
exceed
saw.
150.
Okay, and the intent is that all of that together would cover, what, roughly half the costs of the refurbishment, or is it more than that?
Last I saw, the estimate was about $800,000 for the complete project.
Okay, all right.
So
There's a
half.
grant that the city can get for support of the tennis courts. They apply for it in the summer. It helps to have support from a local school district. I think there are other parties or entities as well. And so that grant would go to fund also a sizable portion of the tennis courts.
And would this be would just be a one-time payment, or would, with sort of a view that at the point in time they needed more, we would be prepared to sort of put up more money if there was more money sort of needed ongoing, or how's that? What's the thought process there?
It's a one-time investment, one-time payment.
Okay, all right, good. And I do think, by the way, I think it's a very good idea to keep the tennis courts and the carnival separate. I mean, I do think they're separate issues.
That was going to be my question for you, Bruce. Why are we having this conversation about both of these things at the same time? I don't see how they're related.
Yeah, I mean, that's the city is, their interest is to tie them together for their needs and how they see the use of their campus and their facilities there. It's a kind of a fork in the road for them to determine how to best use their facilities.
But our decision regarding the 1 year versus multi-year agreement on the carnival has absolutely no bearing on our willingness to contribute to the tennis courts.
Yes, not from our standpoint.
From our perspective,
correct.
that's what I
Yes.
thought. Okay. Other questions or comments?
And I guess it would be interesting just to understand from the rest. I mean, does the rest of the board, agree that it's a good idea that the district makes? I'm certainly firmly in favour of this contribution towards the towards the courts. And I guess
Well, I think we have to get the parties together to talk about it. Right
Right.
now, we're just speculating, right?
Okay.
I mean, we're sort of tentatively, right? We need to have a further discussions, but I think in general, we're willing to support the tennis courts.
Right. All I'm trying to do is to make sure that that there's a general sense the board is all supportive of Bruce moving forward with this contribution to go and do this from the district. That's all.
Well, I think one thing that I wanted to do, and one thing that I said is having full understanding of what are all the entities going to do to support the courts. So, for example, like we all have specific court time. We all pay for court time. Happy to do it. But if we all of a sudden Narings and Webster University are no longer at the table and they're not contributing, yet we're contributing, I would think that that agreement, I might want that agreement to look a little bit differently in terms of the benefit to the district. Now, that may or may not fly, with the city and what they want, but so that's why having everybody there, and I haven't heard anybody that's unwilling to contribute at this point. I think, we'll just proceed.
Okay. I mean, I'm sorry, Steve. I know. I'd take the different. Frankly, I would say I certainly hope that Webster and Narings will contribute, but I would suggest that the district, in good faith, I would hope that, irrespective of what anybody else will do, that we would say we are prepared to make this contribution. If somebody says they can't make as much, I would still be in favour of us making a contribution at that level. I think it's appropriate for what's going on. So I wouldn't try to tie the two sort of together. And
yeah, and I wasn't from my stance wasn't from a financial stance. It was from, can we ensure that our kids have the court time, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So that Webster, so it wasn't like changing the dollar amount necessarily. Okay. It was just the benefits to us using the courts.
Okay.
Steve.
In that same vein that David said, having been on the board when we approved that as a caveat in the budget, I don't remember at all our discussion being contingent upon or hinging upon the participation of the other parties, is that we were willing at that time, and I would vote in favor of doing that again for that very good faith effort to the city to say, yeah, we still stand by the fact that we're willing to kick in the $150,000, and our position on it hasn't changed from when we approved the budget before. That would be my opinion.
More comments? I'll just add, putting on with regard to the long-term contract, as an attorney, I think it makes absolutely no sense to tie up our property for 10 years unnecessarily. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we won't agree to it next year, but we just don't know what's going to happen. I think we need to keep the flexibility in order to respond to whatever we may need to do with our facilities. So that's just my opinion with regard to the proposed long-term agreement. Does anybody else have thoughts or comments about that piece of it?
I'll let somebody else go first.
Yeah.
With regards to the language that was presented, and again, I don't pretend to be an attorney, so I don't know about as far as the words due to a renovation or construction project undertaken on the property by the district. I'm not sure if that's too broad to, what that entails as far as the wiggle room. I do like the fact that, and I think we had discussed at different times, that if we were to consider more than a 1 year, even just a 2-year agreement or a 3-year agreement, that there would have to be some ability to get out with some reasonable length of notice to the club, to the city, for them to be able to make alternative arrangements. While we've been very clear of the fact that we don't have any plans to do anything right now, that's a big financial commitment to undertake. It is one of those things where, I will be the first one to say, I hit the Powerball, we're gonna make some changes at Moss Field, because I'm ponying up. I pledge that right now. But then again, I don't plan on winning the Powerball. But if somebody else does come with a program or a potential program to reach out for some major donors to that, we obviously need the flexibility to be able to make changes to our property. And I agree. I don't see why a 10-year agreement is an end-all be-all, or it's a deal breaker for anybody.
And just a point of clarification, so we approved the contract in January, we modified it in February. This is proposed language. If we wanted to make another amendment, if we don't do anything, we have a 1-year agreement. So, just go ahead.
And this language was in all fairness to Steve, it was kind of like
That's just
draft language.
Yeah, it's draft
Could be
language,
changed.
right.
Yeah.
Good.
I think sort of a few things just to emphasize. First, I think, as John said, this is a 1-year agreement is consistent with what we do for everybody else who uses our facilities. I'd be concerned if we start making precedents elsewhere. I'm certainly not a lawyer and whatever. Second thing, I think that just with our conversation in terms of the alcohol, on allowing people to bring alcohol onto the school parking lot. I think we've demonstrated that if somebody comes to us and there is a need for some flexibility, we're very ready to be flexible. And I would suggest that, again, if there's additional needs for flexibility within this, again, we're going to be flexible.
Actually, to jump in there, a member of the Lions reached out to me personally on that issue, and I said, I don't know why not. Let's talk to Doug and make sure it's okay. And yeah, that's where it came from, directly from the Lions. So,
right, and
yeah.
so we've always been, we'll be very flexible. I think, again, I mean, we talk about sort of a 1-year agreement. I think we want to make very clear, in just the same way we make 1-year agreements with lots of other people, we've no intention of not going and renewing this. All we're suggesting is that it is good and it's prudent to maintain flexibility. My expectation, in reality, is that in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, we'll still be, unless something else is going to, the carnival is still going to be held on our property. There's no good reason for us to go and step away. No intent, certainly, for me, and I don't think from anybody else that we want to do it. We merely want to go and maintain flexibility, which we do with any of these agreements that we sign. I just think that that's just a prudent thing to go and do.
All right. Don't need to take any action unless somebody would like to propose that we do so. All right, hearing no such proposals. Thank you, Bruce. Facilities assessment report, you can stay up there.
months ago, following a rigorous proposal evaluation and selection process, the board approved the recommendation from the Building Advisory Committee to engage an independent consulting firm, EMG, to perform a comprehensive facility condition assessment of the district's aging building and infrastructure. At the time, a target reporting date to the board was set for this evening, April 23rd. Tonight, I'm pleased to report that this project was completed on budget and on time. Before introducing EMG and getting into the details of the report, I'd like to recommend a few folks who also are here this evening. First, Mr. Bruce Wood, who serves as the Building Advisory Committee chairperson. Also, I would like to recognize Mr. Rob Stuber, who is the district's construction manager, but who's unable to join us this evening, but he personally accompanied EMG site inspectors on every building visit in the district. Finally, I'd like to also recognize Matt Palmer, who I saw earlier, sitting by Mr. Wood, who is the district's director of facilities. Without the help of all of these individuals and others, we would not have been able to accomplish this monumental project. Since EMG will provide an overview of what the facilities condition assessment does entail and what components it does cover, I will exclude that from my remarks. However, it is also important to be aware of what it does not include. First, it does not include any improvements or enhancements to our existing facilities other than what naturally occurs through the repair and replacement of existing infrastructure to maintain current functionality in good condition. It also does not include expansion of facilities to accommodate program, other needs, wants, or enrollment changes, grade configuration changes, service locations, and the like. It also does not include improvements necessary to make facilities fully accessible, only what is needed for maintaining current code compliance and current accessibility accommodations. It does not include any abatement of asbestos still remaining in buildings other than what would incidentally be required to repair, replace, maintain other building components. And finally, it does not include any security-related improvements or enhancements other than what would, again, happen naturally as repairs and replacements are made. Instead, these items that it does not include, either have already separately been evaluated, like accessibility. There was a report done a few years ago on what it would take to make district facilities completely, fully accessible. It also so it doesn't include those items because they've either already been evaluated or they're going to be evaluated by the district going forward in order to develop a comprehensive facilities plan to include all district capital needs, not just the care and upkeep to maintain existing facilities in good operating condition. So, as a result, the facilities condition assessment report that you will hear about tonight is the first step and the first piece of the current 900,000 square feet, $158 million facilities puzzle. This is a bound copy of the complete report that was generated by EMG. We can provide you with a personal copy of your very own if you would like one. Mr. Lohr is on the Building Advisory Committee, so I saw he brought his copy this evening. Just let me know if you would like one. Concluding my remarks, I would like to thank the board for allowing the district to engage this assessment work, as it helps put the district in a position to more reliably predict, prioritize, and plan for such future capital facility needs from both an annual operating budget perspective as well as any potential bond issue perspective. At this time, I would like to turn the podium over to Mr. Andrew Hupp of EMG to present their findings and recommendations. Mr. Hupp.
Thank you. as Bruce mentioned, my name is Andy Hupp, and I am a program manager with EMG, and I had the privilege of overseeing this assessment for you guys. So I just wanted to start off with a little bit of introduction, who EMG is, what we do, then we'll go into some of our findings about your properties, and go into a little bit more detail about the facility condition assessment that we performed. So EMG, we are a national organization. We do a lot of state, local, a lot of college campuses, a lot of K through 12, a lot of multifamily housing. We have about 700 employees across the United States, and we have been doing FCA's physical or facility condition assessments for 30 years. So what did EMG's assessment include? Well, when we first started, we actually got to sit down and spend some time with Rob and Bruce up front and got to walk through all of the buildings, talk about every single one, what some of the needs are, what some of the issues, what work had recently been completed. And then we also got to go up and look through all of the construction documents for all of the schools. So we had a little bit of a understanding of the school layout, what was there, and also we were able to see in the construction documents some of the things that would have been concealed behind the walls, because we do not do intrusive testing. We're not going to cut holes in your walls. So the construction documents are a critical part of that. The next thing that we did is we actually went out and we did an assessment of Avery, and from there we did the assessment, did the report, and submitted it so that Rob and the team could look through it and make sure that we were including everything that they wanted to have included. And then from there we dove in and tackled the rest of the schools. So our facility condition assessments, it includes inspections of the building systems. We are looking at everything from architectural components to mechanical equipment to interior finishes. So we're capturing all the rooftop equipment down to the carpet and the painted wall surfaces. We are capturing, or we captured make, model, and serial number of all the mechanical equipment that we were able to get that data from. So that was also available to the team. And then we had our repair and replacement recommendations based off of the useful life, the remaining useful life of the components that we saw. All of our costs come from RS Means. I don't know if you guys are familiar with RS Means, but it's a nationally recognized cost library. So all of our costs are based off of RS Means unless we were provided with pricing from the school district. So all of that leads into the deliverables, where we are looking at FCI calculations, which are the Facility Condition Index. So it's taking all of the needs of the building over a period of time, whether that's next year, or a 5-year period, or a 10-year period, divided by the replacement value of the school. So it helps us judge numerically which buildings need the most work. From there, we can start working on capital planning, and then it allows us to do some database and other integrations with other systems that you guys might have or will have in the future. So, so what is the purpose of the FCA? So we're looking at long-term, like when do your windows need to be replaced? What HVAC replacements and upgrades are recommended? The ADA improvements, if we knew what the prior report, the content of that, and we included that. And the fire sprinkler installation. So, a lot of your schools are older and may have partial sprinkler systems or no sprinkler systems or just need upgraded. So that is listed as a year 1 replacement, but those are grandfathered in so that you wouldn't have to do them in year 1, but we just put them there so you don't forget that if you do any renovations at the schools, you need to consider putting a sprinkler system. We're also looking at immediate needs, so anything that needs to happen within the next 12 months, whether those are life safety issues like concrete sidewalks that pose trip hazards to loose handrails, any minor accessibility upgrades that we saw. And we were able to keep this pretty consistent. We had only 3 people working on this project, so it's not like we brought in somebody for each school. We used the same team over and over. Mr. Andrew Carlton, Andrew Corral, and Tammy Caruso. So some of the definitions, some of the things that you'll hear me talk about tonight: expected useful life. So this is the industry standard for how long a piece of equipment or a component is supposed to last. The effective age is our professional opinion on how much or how many years, how old a piece of equipment is, if we did not know the exact install date. Which all brings us to the remaining useful life, which is how much life a component has left, whether it's carpet or an air conditioning unit. So we're looking at short-term considerations, which are assets whose effective age has either been reached or exceeded their useful lives. The reserve term is the following 20 years. The current replacement value, CRV, is the research value to rebuild a facility. So all of the CRVs that we have used come from Marshall Swift, which is another database that is basically all they do is help determine what replacement values are for different types of buildings in different locations. And then we talked earlier about the Facility Condition Index, FCI. So it's the facility needs divided by the replacement value of the property. So, what we're looking at, we're getting quantity, we want to know expected useful life, how much life it has left, the effective age. We're looking at the cost to replace it. We're also documenting location, whether it's carpet in a specific room or an air handler unit at a specific location. All of that has been captured. Make, model, serial number if it's on a piece of mechanical or plumbing equipment. The condition of something, so whether it's in good, fair, or poor condition. So sometimes that's relative to its age, sometimes it's a reflection of maintenance or the component itself. And then we've also flagged all the critical needs, which are the items that need to be replaced within the next 12 months. So all of these things kind of funnel down and help us build our replacement reserve schedule. So what we're doing is we are identifying every component in the building that needs to be replaced over a 20-year period. And from there, we're able to help you prioritize, and then it will ultimately lead to the ability to provide some capital planning. So, that's the Facility Condition Index. We're going to skip that for now. The list of buildings. So these are the buildings that we did. The admin building, the Avery Elementary, which includes modular building, Bristol, Clark, including modular building, Edgar, Hudson, WGSD, Steger, Hickson, Webster Grove High School, and the Webster Grove Service Center. So here you can see the Facility Condition Index. So the higher the number indicates the greater needs based on the replacement value of the building. So we have the Webster Grove Service Center, Clark Elementary, Hickson Middle School. You can just kind of see those. So I don't know if that's surprising to anybody or not, but that is those are the FCIs that we had found for this. So I will also say, you can see there's a note down there that there's a little over $6 million for Moss Field improvements that were not included in this FCI calculation, because those are, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, how should we think about sort of 2.75, 2.5 service center on Clark versus sort of 0.25% for the admin building? I mean, should we think in terms of that's sort of 4 or 5 times greater, or is that not the right way to think about it?
You should be thinking about it in terms of scale and magnitude on this particular graph. So it's showing you that the needs of the service center, the FCI is 2.75%. So that for us is a building that if the needs are not met and it's left unabated, that would be in poor condition. So we'll go on down here. There's some more slides that start to talk about some of the definitions, what some of the ranges are that I think will maybe help answer some of your questions.
Thank you.
So if we're looking at...
I'm sorry to stop you real quick.
Yeah.
We're starting to talk about why Moss Field was excluded.
Oh, yeah. So Moss Field, so there's about a little over $6 million worth of work for Moss Field that was excluded because they are upgrades, they are additions, renovations, not necessarily replacements. So we have talked about those in other places in the report, but because they are not replacing like items, they are enhancing, they're adding, I don't remember what some of the items were, Bruce, they were like,
It's going from a 6-lane track to an 8-lane track.
things like that, yeah.
Or like the home structure is an old concrete 1948 structure, which would be replaced by a totally different kind of structure.
Underneath it, and
Yes.
that kind of
Right.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And so are we going to do an assessment of those needs at some point?
So we do have those defined, and they are just, because it's such a substantial number, that if we included that data in here, Hickson would have spiked, and everybody would have been like, what's going on? So I want to make sure everybody realizes that even though there's talks about some upgrades and improvements, we left those out of the FCI calculations.
One of the things that before you leave this, that I thought was interesting, without getting into too many details, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but to see Clark and Edgar Road be on opposite ends when they are essentially vintage, the same buildings designed by the same architects and built within 18 months of each other, opened within that amount of time. I was really surprised to see how much worse condition essentially that Clark is versus Edgar Road.
If Moss Field was a separate facility, where would it fall on this percentage chart, roughly? If you can pull that out of your...
So roughly it would be on the higher end, because there's a lot of work that's needed at Moss Field. So, I mean, that's definitely something that, you know, we could look at for you. You know, Bruce, if you guys thought that would be valuable, we could pull Moss Field out of middle school altogether and have a separate asset for that. So, something to think about.
Yeah, well, it's physically located on what is essentially the Hickson grounds. It's really a separate facility from the standpoint of what it's used for, and, you know, other than gym classes, I mean, granted, that's part of it, but it's really its own facility.
Right. Okay. So here we're looking 10 years out. So again, the higher the number, the greater the need. And this, once again, is left if the needs are not, if replacements are not done, repairs are not made, if the buildings are left completely unabated, no work is done, you can see that they all grow. Anything above 5% in this chart is considered in poor condition. So if there's not money put back into these buildings, in 10 years, they're all going to be what we would consider in poor condition. So here's some of the immediate needs. So these are things that we've identified that need to happen within the next 12 months. Now, these are not necessarily including things that have exceeded their useful life. Because, carpet has a 7-year useful life. Just because it's 7 years old doesn't mean you need to replace it. That's where the effective age comes in. So we're looking at saying, okay, the carpet's 7 years old, but you got another 2 years out of that. So we would say the effective age is 5 years. So these are just things that we've identified that need to be replaced immediately. So you can see that, again, the sprinkler systems, many buildings are without full sprinkler systems. E&G has included costs for this equipment. However, due to limitations, these costs fall as immediate needs, meaning we put them in as year one. So that way they don't fall off the radar and people realize that there are some needs there. The small theater at the high school has a cost in for demolition, as EMG's understanding is that will be demolished at the time of the next renovation or addition. This also is included in the first year, but is not necessarily an immediate need. It's just something that we were advised would be happening.
Can I ask, what's like flat work? What's site flat work?
So site flat work, sidewalks, ramps, the concrete around the building, not including the parking lot.
Now, with the larger report, which I haven't looked at yet, does it? I'm assuming it zeroes in to like where the $2,600
It does.
ADA. Yeah.
It does, absolutely.
I figured, but
Yeah. Yeah, so all these, those are compiled numbers. So at Avery Elementary, the windows are going to be broken out, how many windows, which side of the building, whether it's all of them or not. At Webster Groves High School, there's $91,000 for HVAC systems. That's multiple components, that's just not one. This is just at a glance showing you what some of the needs are that need to be addressed. So if we look at the next 10 years for all of the schools, again, these are all just costs grouped together, but it starts to paint the picture. There's quite a bit of money needed at these over the next 10 years. So again, the full report breaks down all of this for you guys. So let's move on. So the replacement reserves summary. So if you look down at the bottom, you will see each year the grand total. So for 2018, the year that we're in, there's about $3.5 million worth of work that needs to be done. And 2019 is a little over 100, and then year 2021 is 11,576. That is where, if you look up at Hickson Middle School, the 7,671, that's where those Moss Field costs are. So if you take those out of the equation, it becomes a much more tolerable number. I mean, it's not a great number, but it's not $11.5 million. All right. So we'll talk a little bit, we'll go into a little bit of detail on 3 of these schools here. So we'll talk a little bit about Hickson, Webster Grove, and Bristol. So the total needs for Hickson, you can see here, there's a couple pages of them. So I don't want to bore you by reading all of them, but you can kind of see where we're going into detail of like condensing units, air-cooled 6-ton that needs replaced, the VAV boxes, fire suppression system, commercial kitchen equipment, all the way down to, there's quite a bit of commercial kitchen equipment actually at the middle school that needs to be replaced. More condensing units, so it's everything. So for each school, we identified, anywhere from 50 to 175 assets that need to be replaced over a 20-year period. What we did not get to is we do not go to the level of like replacing single door handles or replacing outlet switches here and there. If we identified lighting that needed to be replaced, we looked at it system-wide. Has the building been upgraded to LED? If not, let's upgrade it to LED. So smaller components we group together as a system.
Andrew, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Given the fact that historically the district has made improvements to multiple buildings during the same rough period of time, like for example, there might have been boilers replaced in 3 different buildings one summer or something like that. Given the fact that those are all the same vintage as far as but does the earlier calculations you talked about, the condition of every individual boiler of those 3, if, for example, if you just use that assessment says, well, boilers 1 and 3 are good and their expected useful life is, as we would think, 2 is a little rough, for whatever that reason might have been, that's factored in.
Yes.
Basically, you're not looking at all 3 saying they were put in at the same time, their expected useful life is the same, so we expect to replace all 3 at the same summer on the same cycle.
You are correct. We looked at each individual one separately and made recommendations based on the observed condition and also what was shared with us by either Rob or a lot of times there would be an HVAC tech who we were there, sometimes we ran into the maintenance guy or a custodian. All those people were able to contribute to this and say, hey, this boiler's always down, or we have more trouble with this. So we did not necessarily group them all based on their age.
Thank you.
So here's a little summary for Hickson Middle School. So 2018, there's $861,000. We get a little break in 2019. 2020 is $116,609. 2021 is the $8,139,058, and again, that's partly because of Mossfield costs that are in there. 2022, $1,197,656. So we're looking at 5-year term for Hickson here. All right, so some of the things that we saw, some parking lot issues there. There's some stadium bleacher issues, and then there's some exterior wall and soffit repairs. So these are just many or 3 of the many items that we identified. Within our system and within the reports, there are photos tied to every asset, so you guys will have a pretty good understanding of what it is that we saw and why we did what we did and said what we said. So if we're looking at the high school, so again, we won't go through all of these, but you just kind of tells you a little bit about what we did, anything from restroom full configuration and renovations to water heaters, transformers and switchboards to exhaust fans, kitchen equipment like salad tables, convection ovens, down to parking lot repairs and replacements. So here's the snapshot for the high school. In 2018, we have $1.5 million. 2019, $30,000. 2020, $528,512. 2021, $1,090,000, and in 2022, $67,057. So here's some of the things at the high school. The theater, the exterior stairs and retaining wall, bathroom renovations that are needed. So Bristol, again, same thing. These tables are kind of hard to read, so we'll skip through these. We'll get down to the total needs for 2018. We have $32,435. There's only a couple $100 in 2019. 2020, $211,281. 2021, $441,358. And in 2022, we have $418,305. Some of the items, we have some ceiling repairs, some brick veneer repairs, and window replacements. So we prioritize these in our database. Life safety issues are the highest priority. Some of the other things that we've identified that need to happen that make up those first year costs are any code compliance items, any deferred maintenance that will result in failure of the equipment or failure of surrounding equipment, ADA upgrades, and any roof replacements. So, roofing is more important to us than flooring. If the floor looks bad, that's not a big deal. It looks bad. If the roof is bad, then it starts to impact other items. So immediately, we have $3.6 million. Next year is a pretty light year, $106,000, and the 10-year budget overall is $45 million. So I don't want to necessarily bore you guys with some of these tables. Let's skip through some of these costs here. Oh, I guess that's it. So I won't bore you with these tables. So what this is, it's breaking out all of the costs over 5 years for each of the schools. So I won't read through each one of them for you. But what sort of questions do you guys have for me at this point? I know it's a lot. Some of you are probably seeing this for the first time. Others have seen it and had some time to do with it. Anything surprising?
I just have a quick comment. Of course, we've been doing this work yearly. You know, we do what we need to do to maintain our facilities, but having it mapped out in a plan so that we can prepare for these costs in the future is so beneficial. So I think Bruce, this was your suggestion. I think this was absolutely money well spent.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
The team has been wonderful. Like, a lot of times we come in, we don't get a lot of historic information,
Mhm.
but having Rob with us on site every day was very beneficial.
Yeah. David?
I just have a couple of procedural questions. Is this report a matter of public record?
That's probably not for him to answer.
Oh, I guess
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and is it possible to get, have you produced an electronic copy of it? Because I'm just thinking that if it is a public record, I certainly don't need to have a copy that looks like that, but if there was access to an electronic copy, and equally if it's public record, we may have members of the community that look at this that might be interested to do it, so that if we can make it readily available, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I echo what Amy said. Thank you very much, and this is I can't read all the things here, but it does look like it's very comprehensive and gives us a much better idea as to really where we need to be concentrating.
Yeah, absolutely. Every building has its own standalone PDF report, so those are available broken out by building.
With the photos and everything in it?
Photos and
That's nice.
Great.
What is the
No, that's good.
What is the trend line when you look at expenditures over the 20-year period? Does it remain fairly flat? Does it decline over time?
It declines because you guys have a lot of older schools, and you have a lot of systems and components that are past their useful life but are still functioning. And so what we always say is, like, just because we recommend replacing something in year 5, say we have a rooftop unit in year 5. It doesn't mean that you need to go out and replace a perfectly good rooftop unit in year 5. It means in year 5 you need to have money set aside, because at that point it could go any day. So there's a backlog of needs that we try not to make hit all in the first couple years. We try to spread it out over the first 5 years. So after that, the trend line starts to go down.
Thank you.
Kind of combining Amy and David's comments and question, one of the things that I was so impressed by was the fact that was the thoroughness of it, because I think the people tend to be very visual as far as not only looking at the numbers, but looking at the condition and pictures and things like that. I think obviously because we all know that our buildings have, we haven't had to replace or build new because we've pretty much had the old buildings in its place for a long, long time. But I think the fact that David's question about being a matter of public record, I think that is a real benefit, because if people will take the time to look at this, they will see what our needs will truly be in the next 6 months to 10 years. And so many times that information will be crucial to having them on board with what our plans are going to need to be going forward, not only from an ongoing maintenance budget and operating budget that Bruce will talk about probably multiple times during the year, but also those higher dollar amounts that we're going to need to actually plan for, whether it be bond issue money or whatever it might be. It's having this to just say, we're not just telling you that we need this money, you got to look and see it and show to people what really we're dealing with here. And in some cases, as you said, life safety is at the primo, because that's one of the things we've always said is the safety and health of our staff, our students, and the people who are come and go from our buildings has got to be there, and we have to be able to dedicate the money to dealing with those things.
Arnold.
One quick question. The RS means would include labor and materials, correct?
So RS means cost includes the labor, the material, the disposition of whatever you were replacing. There's also a small general contractor fee built in there and a small design contingency. Okay. So it does include all that. I will say that it is RS means. So depending, some of the prices might come in lower, some of them might come in higher, but they usually average out.
Yes, Tina.
I have a quick question. Are playgrounds included in this at the elementary schools? It's like a safety?
We did include playgrounds and playground services. So yes, that would have been included.
Just to put this in perspective, Bruce, can you tell us what's in the budget so you've shown how over the next 10 years we need $45 million, you potentially need $45 million. What's in the budget sort of for this year, and what would you anticipate if we continue to budget in the same way that we would either have now or build up over time to cover these?
Yes, that's a good question, and I will answer that along with, I guess, a little bit bigger of a context. First, when I got the report, I have to say that the picture wasn't from an overall standpoint as grim as what I was expecting, given the age and stage of our buildings. Particularly in the first few years. We were looking at year one, 2018, a little over $3 million, and then recognizing that over $2 million of that actually were sprinkler systems to get all the buildings fully sprinklered, which is not a required cost, not what I would call an essential cost. And then the year two cost, 2019, in total, is like $100,000. So what that tells me is if you look at the essential versus non-essential nature of these next few years, we have time to develop a plan for what is on the horizon and what we see here from keeping up with what investment we already have. In terms of what funding is included in the budget, it's about around $1 million. We have $700,000 in this year's budget and tentatively in next year's draft budget for building improvements, but then we also have a maintenance budget for replacement of motors that go out, fans that go out, other kinds of needs that come up. So I would say that the operating budget invests about $1 million per year. So when you look at and recognizing that we haven't had a bond issue since 2010, and here we are in 2018, and we're getting this report that things are in pretty good shape right now, but we're going to have to keep up with them going forward. I think that's a credit to Matt and the facilities department on just a moderate amount that's included in the budget of keeping up with the buildings, and they focused that on roofs and the HVAC, the bones of the structure, because we can have classes. We can have classes with old carpet and windows, but we're not going to have classes with leaky roofs and HVAC that doesn't work.
Thank you.
The last thing I'll say is this is not a one-time snapshot. I mean, it is in a sense, but that's not the end of the story there. This is a database that the district is going to maintain and keep up with going forward, so that it's a rolling plan that as we make replacements, as we do repairs, it will be updated, so we will always have a current facilities condition index for each of the buildings and what needs to be done going forward.
Would you be able, though, to calculate the replacement costs, as going forward? Is there a formula for that?
I think what Andy was saying is that some Marshall Swift, we do. You have a kind of a benchmark per square foot for elementary schools, for middle schools, for high schools, and probably regional for that could be used just for purposes of computing a facilities condition index.
All right. Thank you again. Thanks, Andy, for being here. That was very, very helpful. Appreciate it.
If I can give a shout out to all the folks that are on the Building Advisory Committee. Bruce, back there's some really, really smart people, and they ask really tough and really good questions. And Bruce, this Bruce as well, handles them very, very well and gets the information to that group on a timely basis. And it's actually really a pleasure to watch that group work and ask some really, really smart, experienced people in just this kind of business.
Absolutely. We are fortunate to have them. Thank you, Steve. Okay, at this time we will have our second opportunity for public comments. Don't fight over it. Both get a turn.
Hi, my name is Scott Davis. I live in the Parkway West School District, but I'm the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Webster Groves. And I just wanted to provide a couple point of information on your guys' topic that you had earlier with the carnival. The reason the city sees the carnival and the tennis as a platformed agreement is that we're trying to find a location for the Lions to have a space that they can use, which they have been accustomed to the size and scope of their event. We're also trying to find space for the varsity tennis users, both schools, to have a spot that they can both practice and play matches. And we're struggling to be able to provide both of those opportunities on our location. We've always put this out there as a multi-function and faceted agreements that on our standpoint, they were always together. The tennis agreement was also offering a 10-year commitment for your all's tennis programs, both in times of practices and matches, as well as cost certainties for memberships. We were going to lock those in at today's rates for the next 10 years. The 10-year draft carnival agreement also provided a significant rental for the use of your all's properties that could be used to renovate the parking lot space that's there. And then finally, again, we're really hopeful that we can try to make this work. Our other plans that I had already presented to council was to remove 8 courts and only replace 4 courts that we would pay for through our grant process, and then we would build an additional parking lot across where the current 4 courts are at, and that would provide a drop-off space for our sports field users. It would provide us additional parking for pool users and recreation facility users, but then it would also provide us the certainty of having a space for the carnival that could be on roughly the same size parking lot space that they have become accustomed to, or the same amount of rides they had when they were on the field, even though they'll no longer be on the field. So I just wanted to give all those points of information out there for you all too.
So Scott, thanks for sharing that, and we have a policy, as you probably know, of not responding to public comments, but we're looking forward to continuing this conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Beck.
I just want to hit like 3 quick points that I was going to hit last meeting, but it was a celebration for Christine and Keita, so I postponed until tonight. Really quick, my grandmother, my mom were both teachers. I think our teachers are underpaid. There are school districts in this country that take a different view of teachers, and they're paid differently. They have different pay scales. And yeah, I think our teachers are underpaid. Second, map testing. I may be the outlier. I am not a fan and advocate of map testing. When you all showed, particularly the Beyond Measure film, where a high school stood up and said, we don't want map testing either, and they got rid of it. I am in that camp. They're doing map tests last week and this week, and I got to tell you, I have a 3rd grader. I just don't get it. I just don't see the value of it. Third, communication. I went over and spoke with Bill Sente for the first time. He's the new principal of Bristol. I went in to give him like a 10-minute update of what's on wheels and what we needed from Bristol and what we needed from him. We had a very good discussion, but then Bill just said, hey, can you stick around? And I go, okay. He shuts his door, we sit down, he obviously had some free time, and we had this terrific conversation, just the 2 of us, face to face, person to person, no technology. And the thing is that it's great that Jerry is here, because Jerry is probably, I think, the best in this whole city of initiating sit-downs with people. She and I don't sit down every week, we don't sit down every month, but we sit down, I think, pretty often, and we sit down and we have a conversation. And it's connecting with humanity without technology. And, Kathy, in your survey about communication, that's the strongest way to me. And from that standpoint, communication as a grandparent in the district, the 2 hot issues. Number 1 is PBL. People still, in my opinion, do not understand it. Many think it's required. Many think it's demanded. They don't get it. They know how it works, but they don't know how it's applied. And then the second thing is that the notion of redrawing district lines is getting out there, and you talk about a hot button issue. But it was online, you know, I mean, it's been available in different sources. Well, it's getting out, and that is a hugely contested hot button issue, because a lot of people buy homes, buy houses, and they do not want to risk having to send their kids to a different school. So be prepared, that's going to be a big issue.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve consent agenda items 9.02, 9.03, 9.04, 9.05.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
And I made a comment to John about this, that I appreciate Doug's commitment and everything he's done for the district and his firm and everything. I have no problem with that. I agree with everything going on. I think it would be good that we put that maybe out to bid, just to be transparent about our services.
Okay, are you okay with proceeding with the,
Oh, absolutely.
that's on consent? Okay.
And to be clear, that's the legal services agreement that you're suggesting that the board should put out for bid every 3 or so years.
Yes.
Okay, so moved in second. Any further comments or discussion? All those in favor, aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay. Would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
So
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, somebody second?
Joe did.
I think
Arnold proposed and Joe
Arnold went
seconded.
second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Meeting adjourned.